He is Zach Rosenblatt. I am Connor Hughes. This is Jets' final drive coming your way after probably the worst loss of the season for the Jets. We'd spoken so much the last couple of weeks, Zach, about how this team, while they weren't necessarily as talented as their competition, they were fighting, they were clawing, they were taking a shot in the face, but getting right back up and throwing a few of their own. There was not much of that against the Miami Dolphins. 34-10 the final. The Jets are now 3-10 on the season, officially eliminated from the postseason for the 15th straight year, which is the longest drought in American professional sports. Zach, it was ugly, but welcome back to the show, my friend. I'm happy to do this once again like we do every single week.
I was going to say, Aaron Glenn waited until we praised him the most we have all season to go out and have their most embarrassing performance, where they were not ready from the get-go. They were out-coached. Yeah, it was an ugly one, and just a further sign that we need to get to the end of the season. 4 games left. I am looking forward to covering them while also at the same time ready to talk off-season stuff, which I'm sure we'll be doing a lot over the next few weeks as well.
Yeah, when they were 0-7, Zach, I was a little concerned just about this show, and also we do Jets Mailbag because content starts to run dry when basically you're dipping into the off season during Halloween. I mean, we didn't even get to after the Halloween candy before we had to start worrying about this stuff with the Jets. But give them some credit. They made not a run to the playoffs, but at least made things interesting over the last 5 until this trip back down to earth. But we're going to get into everything throughout the next hour or so here on JFD. We're going to be talking about the NFL draft, of course, quarterbacking options, of course, the defense, the coaching, the Indianapolis Colts draft selection, which now certainly looks like it might be a pretty juicy one for the New York Jets. But before we get to any of that, we're going to start this one like we start every single one. It is a segment brought to you by Monmouth University, the greatest university in all of the land. And it is what have we learned, or what did we learn, I should say, from this Jets loss to the Miami Dolphins. I'll start with this one, Zach, and we're going to touch upon it quite a bit a little bit later on. Brady Cook didn't look completely and totally out of place. He didn't light the world on fire. He certainly had his bugaboos in this game. But I came away relatively optimistic about what Cook could potentially be for the Jets long-term down the road. Again, not as a starting quarterback, not as a franchise quarterback, but maybe he is a guy that could be developed into a decent enough backup. There were some throws on Sunday that were impressive.
Yeah, I on my other podcast earlier, I mentioned, you've covered them longer than me, but I've watched some really bad quarterbacks for this team, for the Giants, for the Eagles, and he was not Luke Falk. He was not, he was not
Tim Boyle.
Tim Boyle. He was not Drake Fromm, Mike Glennon. These guys I covered for the Giants and Jets. He looked like he could be a competent player at the very least. I think he went out there. He was a little nervous in the beginning. We're going to touch on it more. I won't go too deep, but yeah, I agree. He was not a complete disaster, and there's something to be said about that for an undrafted rookie getting thrown in the fire on no reps to look like that.
Agreed. Again, the any chance the Jets had of winning this one probably went out the window as soon as Tyrod Taylor went down. But Cook, I thought he was okay enough. All right, let's get into this one, Zach. Like I said, 34-10 the final. In this one, the Jets are now 3-10. I think what was most discouraging about this is that every game the Jets had played the last few weeks, especially when they had won 3 of their last 5, but even going back, I'd say all the way to the Bronco game in London, they were in all of the games that they played. They lost to Denver by 2 points. They lost to the Panthers by 7. They beat the Bengals by 1. They beat the Browns by 7. They lost to the Patriots by 13. But that was a lot closer than a lot of people expected, especially considering how good New England looks as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. The Ravens lost by 13, but again, they were in that one in the first half, leading after the first quarter. Falcons beat the Falcons by 3. Then there was this one. A complete and total you-know-what kicking. I don't think it was particularly close from the jump at this one. Miami jumped out to that 21-0 lead. The Jets really didn't do anything on offense, then lost Taylor and basically had no shot at all. This one could have been significantly worse if A-Chain hadn't gotten hurt for Miami. He was running rampant through the first quarter and a half before he left with an injury. There wasn't a lot of fight on defense. I thought the Dolphins aren't a good team, but I think you saw the glaring talent discrepancy even between a not good team and the Dolphins and then where the Jets are right now. Aaron Glenn took full responsibility after the game, saying that the Jets were not prepared and that falls on him. But still, I think I expected to see more, and it was discouraging when you did not.
I think This is kind of the problem you run into when you're a team who hangs your hat almost entirely on just fighting until the end, as opposed to having a schematic advantage or talent advantage any week. So, they were kind of bound to have a game like this. I will say it's kind of tradition around here for the Jets to have a late season dumpster fire against the Dolphins. It's usually in Miami, but at the end of last year they had a bad one. Don't remember what the score was. I do remember the year before they lost 30-0 in Miami late in the season. That was like a really bad moment for Saleh. I believe the year before they had a blowout towards the end of the season. Like that, something about the Dolphins, they get blown out late in the season to embarrass them and feel a little bit less good about your team. And the bigger overarching problem is that along with this 15-year drought of the playoffs, the Jets have also just been absolutely terrible in the division. Like even in seasons where they've shown some promise, like 22 or 2015, they haven't had a winning record in the division, I believe, since they made the playoffs last. I might have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure. And that's kind of like if you want to start at like if they're ever going to become relevant again, you start there. If you don't win your division games, you're not going anywhere. And they weren't competitive in this one. They were, as you said, they weren't competitive in the Patriots one. And so this is, this is kind of the state of this team. They have a long, long way to go. Their roster is kind of bereft of, real legitimate like pieces. It feels like there's a couple that you can feel good about, but and we're in this time of the year where these jobs that are opened or opening, everybody's talking about, oh, they have a good core of talent. Like this is a good spot for any coach to come into. Every team has a few players that are really good. Like it's pretty hard to have like no good players. The Jets have a few. They don't have really a roster that you can point to anymore and be like, next year they can make the playoffs if they just get the right quarterback or they just get the right coordinator or something like that. And that kind of goes to something you and I were talking about in the press box after the game yesterday. Like we all were victims of this, you and I in particular, not in particular, but among them, of overestimating the talent on this roster. And that's including when Sauce and Quinnen were still here, because it pretty clearly was maybe a team that was getting propped up more by coaching previously than we realized.
And I think, and we can. Sorry, Zach, you cut out for a second there in my ear, and I was like, oh, he stopped talking. And then I looked up and saw your mouth was still moving, and I was like, oh no, he's still making his points. We can jump ahead a little bit here because we're going to talk defense, we're going to talk this, but I mean, you just touched upon it there. We absolutely 110% overrated the Jets over the last couple of years. I mean, I remember standing on the sideline after it became very clear that Jeff Ulbrich was not going to have the interim tag removed and he was just a placeholder until the Jets were going to move on and eventually find their new head coach, and saying that this was going to be a vacancy that was among the most coveted in the NFL because you knew you were going to have financial wiggle room, but more importantly, you saw a roster that most people around the league believed was closer than a lot of vacancies or a lot of open vacancies actually are. You had a top 10 defense. You had an offensive line. You had Garrett Wilson. You still needed some additional pieces, but you still had Braylon Allen and Breece Hall. All you needed was the quarterback, and then you could compete with this team significantly sooner than expected. That's completely and totally off base. And the Jets are very clearly not as talented as we expected. They very clearly need significantly more pieces than what we ever really talked about or assumed. But I think what's most alarming to me, and it really got hammered home against the Dolphins, and I have to give Brian Costello some credit because we were talking to him about this in the press box after the game, and it really did get me thinking. But if we can praise Aaron Glenn for what he's done in terms of getting the Jets ready to fight, and he has. He's done a hell of a job getting this team to claw and scrap and just never say no and never say die. But what I struggle finding, what player, and Zach, I'm curious how you view this as well, what player who was on the roster with Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich and all that stuff, the players that we believe are going to be cornerstone pieces of this franchise, has gotten better under Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand and Steve Wilks. And specifically on the defense, I think it's most alarming because I legitimately can't find one. Brandon Stevens is absolutely better than he's been throughout his career, but he came from the Ravens. You can say the same about Briggs on the interior defensive line. Phillips is playing pretty well as well. We all talked about Brownlee when he first came over, but but of the Jets' cornerstone pieces that we at one point were thinking were borderline Pro Bowl players or borderline All-Pro players or All-Pro players are still playing at that level or better because of what Tanner Engstrand and Steve Wilks and Aaron Glenn have done. And I don't know who that player has. Instead, I just see a ton of players who have regressed, significantly so. I mean, Tony Adams under Saleh and Ulbrich was at the baseline considered a starting safety in the NFL. Under these guys, it's like he can't even play. Jamien Sherwood has taken significant steps back. Quincy Williams has taken significant steps back. Quinnen Williams in 8 games with the Jets had 16 pressures. In 4 games with the Cowboys, he's got 18. Sauce Gardner didn't look that great when he was here before he was traded. We can talk about, too, the main one that really jumps out to me are the 2 defensive ends in Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald. Jermaine Johnson in 10 games has 3 sacks, Zack. Will McDonald has regressed in just about every single statistical category. I know people will point to his 7 sacks. 6 of them came in 2 games. 4 in one game, 2 in the other. That's it. He's got 1 every other game. So I'm very alarmed because the one thing you can say about the best coaches in the NFL is that they can maximize their talent. They can get the most after their talent. And there are going to be times where you're undermanned and you're at a talent disadvantage, but your coaches can scheme and design ways to help you find success. We saw that at times with Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, not on the offensive. I don't think we've seen that at any point this year in the Jets games. When they've won because they've just outgutted their opponent. I've never felt they were at a schematic advantage, and now you're looking at players and just not seeing progression, but instead an awful lot of examples of regression.
Yeah, I mean, on defense, there's not really anybody that's gotten better. You asked if there's any. Like, I think you could say Joe Tippmann's got better. You could say Olu maybe has got a little bit better, but otherwise there's nobody across the roster. And the defensive side is the more concerning thing because Glenn came from it being a defensive coach, and this was a defense that was pretty good under the previous regime. You alluded to some of these guys like Jamien Sherwood. Last season, he has a breakout year. He gets a huge contract because they believe in this guy. He comes in.
He doesn't even look like a starter.
He's real. I mean, how often does it look like he's trailing behind a tight end? I think he's led up the 9th most passing yards of all linebackers. Quincy Williams has the 6th worst missed tackle rate in the NFL. These rookies they've been playing. Kiko Mauigoa has been playing more and more, and the season's gone along. Since week 7, when his playing time picked up, PFF literally has Kiko Mauigoa as the worst linebacker in the NFL, both in coverage and overall. Jermaine Johnson, he has 3 sacks and 5 QB hits in 10 games and hasn't had one of either since week 11. Will McDonald has only had sacks in 3 games, and he had 0 pressures in this game against the Dolphins. These are guys that are supposed to be getting better, and they aren't. Either they're not using them right, or they aren't developing them, or they're not good fits for this scheme. I don't know what it is. It's a combo of all those things. I know we're going to get into Steve Wilks at some point. That ties to this too. But, I think one thing you can say about Aaron Glenn definitively is that, yes, he is good at motivating his players. He's good at establishing a culture of accountability and making sure everybody is buying in. But what we don't know and what we still need him to prove is, can he develop talent? I think he did that in Detroit to a degree with the defense, but as a head coach, can he do that? And number 2, are the Jets ever going to have a schematic advantage with him at the head? And I'm not saying they might never, but we have seen no evidence of them out-scheming their opponents yet. It just hasn't happened, especially on defense. And so I wonder at what point does he get more involved with the defensive play calling or what they do. But that's a big question mark as you go into the future. Especially as they have all these first-round picks and they have a quarterback they're going to have to get, whether it's this year or the year after. And, you want to get a linebacker, you want to get, wide receivers. Do they have the infrastructure in place to make these players succeed? And we don't know that yet.
No, we don't. And we mentioned the defense, and we can talk about that now, Zack, because this was probably the worst performance I think they've had of the year. Again, this is, I think, what amplifies this, and I know it was 21 points in the first half and, 13 points the rest of the way, but 21 points in the first three possessions and 13 points the rest of the way. But this isn't a good Dolphins team. They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. Tua has not been playing particularly well throughout the course of this season. They lost A-Chain after the first half, and he was running absolutely wild. And it didn't matter because the Dolphins still scored 21 points in the first quarter. They had 239 rushing yards. The Jets missed 10 tackles according to Pro Football Focus. And again, it's it's a problem that just continues to rear its ugly head time and time and time again. And I know Aaron Glenn wants to stick with his coordinators because that's what Dan Campbell did when everyone was calling for the heads of everybody over there in Detroit. And he stuck with Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Glenn turned it around to the point where now he's a head coach. But Steve Wilks is a guy that just seems like he's very stuck in his ways. And there aren't that many adjustments. There's not a lot of read and react. It's almost like if the Jets' game plan is good from the jump, all right, they're set. They're going to ride that one out through all 4 quarters. But if the game plan is bad, it's almost like, well, we're just not going to win this game and it's going to be bad. I mean, what halftime adjustments does Steve Wilks make? What major changes do they make in game? How do they take what the offense is doing and combat it to find a way that stops it and slows it down? I don't see enough of that. And when you compound it with the fact that it's players that we've seen had success previously, and I know, like, we can rip Robert Saleh for a ton. He was far too obsessed at times with the narrative here in New York and trying to control things that he very clearly could not control. And there was certainly issues where he just got down in the dumps and was woe was me and all upset like that, and it certainly hurt the Jets. And I don't think he handled a lot of the adversity that came the Jets particularly well. But the one thing that he did was he maximized his talent, and he's doing it again in San Francisco with a defense that is missing a ton of players. I don't see a Jets defense that is maximizing anything that they have, and these are players that we have seen in their past have been able to play. Jermaine Johnson was a Pro Bowler previously. Will McDonald was a borderline Pro Bowler a year ago. Quincy Williams was an All-Pro. Jamie Sherdlow looked like on the doorstep of being a Pro Bowler. Tony Adams, like I mentioned, was a legitimate starting safety. He wasn't a liability the last couple years with the Jets. Now suddenly he is. Like, Michael Carter traded away. Sauce Gardner, not as good. Quinnen Williams looked like an overrated guy with the Jets. Now suddenly he's back to playing like an All-Pro with the Cowboys. Like, where is it? That's what I keep going back to. And I wonder if somebody does have to pay for this season because, again, the Jets are bad. 3-10 is bad. We can try to look at the good and the shiny lights and the pretty flowers. We can try to do that, but at the end of the day, they're a 3-10 football team that is going to be absent, or that are now officially absent the playoffs a 15th straight year. You wonder if somebody has to pay, and where I go and fixate on, I don't focus too much on the offense because there were already talent issues that we knew going in, but the defense, which had been top 10 and one of the best in the NFL the last couple of years, to be this bad, I wonder if ultimately someone does end up paying at the end of the year, and if that person is Wilks.
Yeah, I think if you look at the beginning of this Dolphins game, I think it was the picture of what's been the biggest problem with Wilks. It's, when he goes against somebody who's an innovative play caller like a Mike McDaniel, they are at a disadvantage every time. The first, however many plays, I think it's the first 15 plays or whatever are usually the scripted ones. And the Dolphins came out, and I think they averaged 11 yards per play on their first 15 yards per game of the game. So that means they averaged a first down on every single play. You look at the season, they've really struggled against play action. And so on play action bootlegs, the tight ends are running wide open constantly. And it's happening against the Dolphins multiple times. Mike McDaniel knows that. So he did that again. They made Greg Dulcich yesterday look like Rob Gronkowski because he was just wide open running through guys. And so they have not adjusted to some of the things they've struggled with. They rank towards the bottom of the league in pressure. They rank towards the bottom of the league in sacks. They have 2 takeaways and no interceptions. They are 25th in red zone defense. They're 30th in rush defense. They're 28th in EPA. Like that, but there's some things that they don't rank terribly at, like third down defense and some random things like that. But like broadly, like what are they even good at? Like what's the identity of this defense? Like what can you point to and be like, that's who we are? And what can you point to and say that's who we're going to be when we get talent here? Like they're not an aggressive team because they don't really blitz that much anymore. They're pretty even with man and zone coverage. Like they don't really do one or the other really a lot. So like who are you? Like what are you going to be? And so, the Wilks convo, you're going to hear Glenn kind of alluded this today. If they don't fire him, which I do think is on the table, him not getting fired, Aaron Glenn is going to allude to what happened in Detroit, which is in 2021, their defense was terrible. Everybody was calling for Aaron Glenn to be fired. Dan Campbell said, I'm not firing him. They brought him back. They were bad again the beginning of the next year. He again said, I'm not firing him. And then eventually they got better. But I don't think you get the luxury of that kind of timing.
They were never a great defense.
I'm not saying they were, but they got better and they were good enough to win. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen the same way here. I mean, Wilks has been one and done 2 different times, including for a team that went to the Super Bowl. And while I think I get the idea of why you hire him, he's a veteran, you're an inexperienced head coach. You want to bring somebody in who has that experience. Like, if you look at a lot of the jobs that are going to open up this summer, coaches are going to get a fire. You're going to have people like Raheem Morris who are going to be available. Like you can get another former head coach in your building if that's what you really want. So I don't know. I can see in my head them defending bringing Steve Wilks back, saying we don't have the pieces. Once we do, he'll be better. I'm not going to give up on him. Like I can see all that happening, but there's the flip side of we also know what happened when the offense wasn't performing up to par and they fired Mike LaFleur too soon. And that was forced onto Robert Saleh as opposed to him wanting to do it. And I don't think that Woody necessarily will force anything on Aaron Glenn here, but when you have one of the worst defenses in the NFL and you're going to finish 3 or 4 wins, somebody's got to take the fall, and Wilks is an easy culprit.
Yeah, I will say that the one thing about Woody, and it is a testament, is that it could be a curse here, absolutely, if it's not justified confidence. But it does seem that Aaron Glenn has the complete and total backing of this organization. I mean, they are going to do whatever Aaron Glenn believes needs to be done. And I know, especially when Woody came back and was really assumed day-to-day control of the Jets once again after being the UK ambassador, there were a lot of times that Saleh or the last staff would want to do things, and it would need to be explained as to why. They needed to be justified decisions. I don't get the sense that there's too much need for Aaron Glenn at this point to justify what he wants to do. If he says, I want to do this, it's like, okay, we'll do that then. If I want to do that, okay, we'll do that then. There's not too much like, well, explain to me why. Well, explain to me why. Well, explain to me why. That is a good thing. Again, does Aaron Glenn deserve that power? We're going to find out in 3 years if he's out of a job or the Jets are in a legitimate playoff contention and Super Bowl contention, but at least that's how things stand right now. So if Glenn says, no, we're sticking with Steve Wilks, I fully expect the Jets to stick with Steve Wilks and not have a situation that happened with Mike LaFleur where Woody said, no, we're making a change at offensive coordinator. All right, let's move on, Zach. But before we do want to thank everybody for listening wherever they are listening. If that is Facebook, shout you guys out. SNY.TV, that's great. X, you guys know we continually tweet and post throughout the duration of this show. But the place to be is YouTube, because throughout YouTube, you are going to be able to interact with us through a live comment section that Brian Pincus, our producer, is currently monitoring. We're going to get to those questions in just a little bit. But you can say what you like about what Zach and I are saying, what you don't like about what Zach and I are saying. Or again, if you have a comment or question on the state of the Jets, what they're going to do at quarterback, how the things look on offense, what things look like on defense, why this continues to happen year after year after year to this franchise, ask it in that comment section. I promise you we will see it, and we will try to answer as many questions as we go. And also, by the way, subscribe to SNY's YouTube channel while you are there, because there is so much content you're going to want to get. Is Giannis heading to the Knicks? I certainly hope so. Ian Begley's going to have that covered on the putback. You'll get Jets pre- and post-game live. You'll get Jets mailbag and everything like that and a ton more over on SNY's YouTube channel, so make sure you guys watch us over there. All right, let's talk a little quarterback here. Tyrod Taylor hurt in the first quarter. Zack wasn't looking particularly good at the time, but once he went down, you knew that this game was over. Still, Brady Cook came in 14 of 30, 163 yards, and a pair of interceptions. First interception, definitely a bad one. Second one, he was just trying to make something happen. Didn't get a lot of help. The offensive line probably had one of their worst games that we've seen from them. Some of that had to do with slower processing from Cook, which meant he held the ball a little bit longer and gave pass rushers time to get home. Receivers absolutely did not help Cook. 5 drops, according to Pro Football Focus. I will say, Cook did look like he got more comfortable as the game went on, because in the second half he was 12 of 21 for 147 yards and an interception, specifically in the fourth quarter, 104 passing yards. So he definitely settled in there in the second half and started making some throws, specifically the one up the right sideline to A.D. Mitchell I thought was a top-tier big league pass. And again, it felt like there was something there with Cook where maybe you want to see a little more. Now, again, I'm not saying he's a franchise quarterback. I do not think that at all, but could he be a long-term backup? Could he be somebody that's on this team for the next 5 or 6 years as a backup? Could he be somebody that maybe has a good preseason, the Jets flip for a 4th-round pick because someone wants to see maybe they can make something else out of him, like the Eagles are probably going to do with Tanner McKee? I think that's a possibility, or at least I think there's the possibility of that being a possibility after how he played in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, it should be said that the Dolphins did start taking out their starters and took their foot off the gas a little bit. But, considering the circumstances, I think he played with a lot of confidence. It sounded like he commanded the huddle really well. Seems like the guys really like him. I would say if Tyrod can't go next week, which I would lean towards that probably being the case, because if his groin injury was bad enough for him to miss the entire second half like he did, I can't imagine he's going to be ready to play next week. And if that's the case, like, for the love of God, do not put Justin Fields back out there. Like, I don't need to see more of Justin Fields anymore this season. Whereas, like, Brady Cook at least showed some signs that he's not afraid to throw the ball down the field. And like he had a bomb that led to a defensive pass interference. Like, we haven't really seen Justin Fields even attempt that very much this year. And Justin Fields had some knee soreness this week just after he said he didn't want to be the Wildcat quarterback. So this kind of feels like a Zach Wilson reluctant situation. And I say roll with Brady Cook this week. It is a tough game for him. We'll get into that. Like, the Jaguars defense is really good, but just keep seeing what you have in him. Like you said, at worst case scenario, he's not a guy you keep long term. Best case scenario, he's your long term number 2 or a guy you can keep around as your number 3. And, you know, what do you have to lose at this point? This team's bad. So.
Yeah, exactly. Again, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, Zach, but I think I joke about this all the time with fans when the Jets draft or add insert quarterback here, and they're all like, how does he look? How does he look? How does he look? I'll be completely honest. Like, I've never seen, and maybe Jackson Dart is it over with the Giants. Maybe I can finally start changing what I'm saying, but I've never seen a legitimate franchise quarterback early in his career to be able to compare somebody to say, like, hey, this guy was doing this in OTAs or in minicamp or in training camp, and it turned out to result to this in the regular season. And then by year 2, he was doing this, which he wasn't doing in year 1, and then that's when we realized, oh, this guy's a franchise quarterback, and he ended up being one of the best in the NFL. I've never seen a quarterback do any of that because my entire career was covering the Giants, all the Jets, and then Giants and Jets. With that said, I've seen a lot of quarterbacks that can't play. I've seen a lot of quarterbacks where you're like, oh, dear God, what's going on here? I saw enough from Brady Cook in the summer and in the preseason, and certainly here now when he was thrown into action against the Dolphins, where there is something a little bit there. And the player that I honestly compare it to is Tommy DeVito, because Tommy DeVito was a player that I remember vividly watching him in training camp and watching him in the preseason and watching him in OTAs, where when he was working with the scout team and he was working with the third team with the Giants behind Daniel and Tyrod and all those guys, there were moments where the game didn't look too big for him. He never looked like he was swimming. He never looked like he was completely out of place. He didn't light the world on fire. He didn't look like a star, but he didn't look like he was out of place. With Cook, I got that same sense. It wasn't good. It wasn't great. It was actually bad, pretty bad at times, but he didn't look out of place. And there were moments in the game where you're like, oh, hell, that was pretty nice. Oh, that was a good throw. Oh, that was a good moment. Oh, he really ripped one there. So there is something to be said about develop the guy, keep inserting time, and see what you don't end up getting from him. One guy who I would say I finalized my report on him. I had been starting to come around on the notion that we all know the Jets are like 99% going to draft a quarterback here in the first round. I started coming around on the idea going into this game that Tyrod Taylor could be the bridge quarterback for that player the Jets draft. That instead of worrying about signing a guy or trading for a guy or anything of that nature, re-sign Tyrod Taylor, bring him back next season. That's your veteran quarterback until the rookie is ready, or just your backup if the rookie happens to be ready right in training camp and you can tell that he's not going to be a huge liability to him and the players around him. I like the argument if we were playing Madden and we could turn off injuries. I love it because he is a beloved player within the locker room, endeared himself to his coaches and his teammates, and when he's on the field, while he's not the 33rd starting quarterback like he was for several years in his career, you can tell the guy can still play. He can still lead an offense and help you and keep you in games and maybe win a couple here or there. You just can't trust him though, Zach. Like you can't have a backup quarterback when you're going into a season with a rookie as your other option that maybe you don't want to play for a month or 2 months as he develops, be Tyrod Taylor. Because this is now, and I looked this up, this is since 2020, Zach. Tyrod Taylor has dealt with a punctured lung with the Chargers, a hamstring injury with the Texans, a concussion with the Giants, ribs with the Giants, a knee with the Jets, a knee again with the Jets, and now a groin with the Jets. If you need Tyrod to play behind a veteran quarterback to finish out a game or play a series or maybe start 1 week, yeah, you're probably fine with Tyrod Taylor. The moment you're asking Tyrod Taylor to play more than one consecutive game, you are playing with fire because this guy, he is so unbelievably injury prone that you just cannot trust him. And that's why this offseason, while the Jets are going to be looking for, very clearly going to be looking for a rookie quarterback and their franchise quarterback and their quarterback of the future, they're also going to need to find a new backup if they go the rookie route, because you can't have that player be Tyrod Taylor. I'm done. I let myself think it's possible, and then I was reminded on Sunday against the Dolphins that it just cannot be the case.
I mean, I wouldn't say my opinion changed at all based on this game, because we knew this is who he was. Like, I think if you're bringing Tyrod as your backup, you're doing it with the comfort in knowing that he probably can't play more than a few games at a time because he's going to get hurt.
But he can't even do that.
Right?
He can't even make one.
Yeah.
He gets one or two, and then he's done.
I know,
he barely gets a half.
But this was the case. This was always the case. Like, this is not different based on this Dolphins game. So, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you feel like you're willing to risk that he can survive it, then you bring him back because he's a good locker room guy and he can get the job done. But if you don't feel like that's the case, then you go in another direction. So it just depends on what they're comfortable with, and if they feel like they're going to be getting a rookie quarterback or whoever that they think is going to be ready pretty early. And if that's the case, then you can maybe stomach a little more of him being your QB2.
And again, I don't, and Connor Rogers made this point on Badlands, and I don't hate it. Like, if the Jets decided to go the route of what the Giants did last year, where the Giants definitely botched this, because what they did was they said Russell Wilson is our starting quarterback no matter what. And even though Jackson Dart and Jameis Winston were both better than Russell Wilson throughout OTAs, minicamp, and training camp, they still trotted out Russell Wilson to be their starter. And it cost them several games early in the season. But they had the veteran in Russell. They had another veteran in Jameis. And then they drafted Jackson Dart. Like, I don't hate the idea if you told me the Jets were going to sign Gardner Minshew, and then they were going to re-sign Tyrod Taylor, and then they were going to draft a quarterback. Similar to when they had Josh McCown, and they had Teddy Bridgewater, and they had Sam Darnold. Like, I don't hate the idea of having three quarterbacks, two of whom have played in the NFL before and can play if they're forced into spot duty. But I just do not believe in a quarterback room next year of rookie quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, Brady Cook. Because if you are starting Tyrod Taylor week one, it's because you do not believe the rookie quarterback is ready. That's why you're starting Tyrod Taylor. And if you're starting Tyrod Taylor, there's a very real chance that rookie quarterback is going in game one or game two or game three when he is not ready. You need a quarterback that you can at least trust is going to be there for you for a month to 2 months of the season without getting hurt. And yeah, fluky things happen in the NFL. He could blow out his knee. He could get a concussion. Fluky things happen, but it's not fluky things with Taylor anymore. It's this guy is not making it out of 3 games. And you mentioned like maybe even a week, Zack. The game he came in against the Bills, he nearly left and got hurt. The game against the Panthers, he did get hurt, and it cost him what would have been his first start against the Bengals. So I just don't I don't think you can do it with Taylor as your only other veteran on this roster. You need him and somebody else. And speaking of that somebody else, I went through finally, and I've looked at them like casually, but I wrote down all of the realistic options that the Jets could go with. Some more unrealistic than others, but still, for example, I'm not putting Zach Wilson on this list of available quarterbacks. Like, they're not bringing Zach Wilson. I'm not putting Aaron Rodgers on this list. So these are players whose contracts are set to expire at the end of this year, who you could imagine a world where they are potentially the Jets starting quarterback next year. And I just wanted you to give me a yes or a no as we run through these. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Number one, and it's so brutal what happened to him today or yesterday with the ruptured Achilles tendon, but Daniel Jones.
No, I mean, he's not even going to be ready to play until, at the very least, like after the season starts. So, no.
Okay. Russell Wilson.
No.
Yeah, I'm by the way, I'm no and no with you as well. Marcus Mariota.
Yes, he's one of the best options.
Yep. Joe Flacco. By the way, you're not picking like you just picked Marcus Mariota. You can't pick anybody else. Like, this is just if they were in, you're like, okay, that's fine.
I know.
Joe Flacco.
I just want to say yes because I like covering Joe Flacco, but I'll say no.
Great dude.
I just don't see that happening.
Did your brother ever play with him at Woodcrest?
No, they never.
He's a big Woodcrest guy. Or what is it now? What do they call it now?
I forget. But Joe,
Legacy.
He's from where I'm from in South Jersey, and he sounds like a lot of people I know. So I always crack up watching him in press conferences. He's got that South Jersey Philly accent that I love.
Great dude. He was so much fun to talk to in the locker room. Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't hate that one. I don't like it, but I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes, but he probably can do a little better than just being the Jets' bridge, honestly.
I don't know, man. But I just think Jimmy's going to go to a place where
he's in McVay's
he
system.
might want to come to New York, dude.
Everybody comes out of McVay's system and can get a better job. That's just the rule.
Yeah. Mitch Trubisky?
No.
Okay. Case Keenum?
Nah, he's like 90 years old.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one. I could reunite you and him. Carson Wentz.
Oh God, no.
I agree. We don't need to see that. Teddy Bridgewater.
I mean, it'd be a fun reunion, but I don't know if he really has it anymore.
He can't play, dude. Yeah, I saw him in that game where he filled in for Baker. Teddy's shot. Teddy's done. Gardner Minshew.
That'll be a fun one, but Gardner Minshew, yeah, sure, he'd be fine.
Tommy DeVito. I like that one.
I mean, I lean no, but sure, why not? That'd be fun.
We'll say no. Sam Howell.
Sam Howell. Only if it's like to compete. I don't think he really has it. So I'd say probably no for him if he's like your bridge option, but if he's competition, sure.
Okay, and then last one, Jake Browning.
No, he stinks.
Yeah, God, no. That's no. All right, so the quarterbacks you would be happy with, I kept below here. It would be Marcus Mariota, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, Sam Howell. And Sam Howell only if he's like that quarterback 3. Like, honestly, I don't hate Sam Howell, Tyrod Taylor, rookie. That's the situation where Tyrod Taylor makes sense, but everything else is not.
Trade for Jameis. That would be fun for all parties.
I don't think Giants are going to let him go. I'll be honest with you. Like that, you're right. That would be really fun, but I don't think the Giants are going to let him go.
Reality. I want Jameis in the buildings.
You want Jameis? Yeah. All right. Let's move on, Zach. Let's talk. So one other thing that did happen today, I appreciate everybody everywhere. Everybody is watching. I should check my phone here because I saw Brian send some notes over here. Yeah, there we go. He just told me to go on to topic 3. Brian, make sure you get in my ear if you really want me on there. Real quick before we transition here, John Gunning, what do you think the Jets will do with Elijah Vera Tucker? Will they try to extend him or let him go? I think Vera Tucker back on a 1-year contract makes a lot of sense.
I think they just have to decide if they want him or John Simpson because Joe Tippmann is clearly the right guard now. I could see them bringing back Josh Myers. Who's their left guard? You have either Simpson or AVT if you like them. So I would honestly lean AVT because I think his ceiling's higher, but I would understand if they like Simpson as a leader.
And then this one is from Jeremy Morris. The Jets use all of their capital on defense, do not go quarterback. All of their capital on defense, do not go quarterback. I keep stressing this over and over and over and over and over again. Punting to the next year on a quarterback makes zero sense unless you evaluate Mendoza and you evaluate Moore and you evaluate Simpson and you evaluate all the quarterbacks in this class and you go, these guys don't have it. They're not a franchise quarterback. Like the last Jets regime evaluated Justin Fields and said he's not a franchise quarterback. So they were never going to draft Justin Fields. If you come away with that impression of these two kids, you don't take them. But the minute you have conviction that one of them is a quarterback, you go and get him because you are not promised next year. And I know right now Woody Johnson is patient. And I know right now everything's fine and we're accumulating all the draft capital. That can change like that. And the minute that it does, suddenly the heat's on and now you're making desperate moves and you're spending dumb money and you're doing dumb things. And ask Brian Dable. Like when Brian Dable finally got his quarterback in year 4, I bet you he thought, hell yeah, we're going to do this. Jackson Dart can play. Guess what happened? Jackson Dart looks great. The Giants weren't winning games. Brian Dable's gone. Like, it's not worth risking it. So the moment you find a quarterback, and we're going to talk about what it's going to cost to go up and get him, you go up there and get him. You don't waste time, anything like that. I don't think it. So that's my take on that one, Jeremy. So appreciate Jeremy for the question. Appreciate John for the question. If you guys have any additional questions, drop them in the comment section on YouTube. That's SNY's YouTube channel where you can watch Jets Final Drive, Jets Mailbag, The Putback with Ian Begley, and everything else. Live comment section running throughout the duration of the show where we can take your questions and answer them in real time. Brian Pincus, our incredible producer, is back there monitoring the comment section and also telling me to move on, which is what we are going to do right now with topic number 3. The Jets, Zach, absent the playoffs 15 years. And I think what is most crazy about the 15-year playoff drought is that they haven't even really gotten close. In 2015 was the closest that they got, where it was a win-and-in situation in Week 17 against the Bills, and they lost to, if I'm not mistaken, that was Tyrod Taylor, where it was just a complete and total colossal disaster. Darrelle Revis talked after the fact about how the Jets went into that game expecting to win, and instead they didn't. Kenbrell Tompkins dropped the pass up the right sideline. Fitzpatrick imploded. That was the closest the Jets have been over the last 11 years. Never really close other than that. But here's a question, and I think this one is fascinating. Do you think it's a two-parter? Actually, let's go this way, because I saw this one asked online, and I originally was like, maybe, but then I thought absolutely not. If the Jets roster as it's currently constructed comes back next year, and all they add is a quarterback, and say that quarterback plays like Jackson Dart is playing right now as a rookie, which is, he was playing at a legitimate Rookie of the Year level before he had the concussion. If he plays at a Jackson Dart level or a good rookie quarterback level, not Jaden Daniels level, but a good rookie quarterback level, could the Jets make the playoffs next year if that were to happen?
So you're saying the only difference is they have a new quarterback?
Yes.
Then no, absolutely not. I mean, the Giants are 2-10, and they have a better roster than the Jets, so they're not a quarterback away. I don't think so. I mean, I don't see this being a playoff team unless they get a superstar at quarterback next year, which I don't see happening. I think they have way too many holes to fill, and it's really hard to do that in one offseason. So I think you attack the positions you think are the most valuable, which in my mind are pass rushers, quarterback, and offensive line. And then once you're good on those three areas, then you worry about weapons, you worry about corners, you worry about safeties, you worry about linebackers. And I just don't think they're going to be able to address everything in one offseason. So, no, I don't think if Fernando Mendoza comes in and he's Jaden Daniels level, I still don't think this team goes to the playoffs, and I'm not even sure they really come that close.
I agree with you. So I completely and totally agree with you. And I made a list of what I felt like the Jets need. Like what they absolutely need right now that is missing from this team. And it's wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, guard, defensive tackle 1, defensive end, linebacker, cornerback, safety, and quarterback. That is 9 things. And I'm giving some leeway elsewhere, saying like, oh, Briggs or Phillips can be defensive tackle too, and things like that. And oh, Sherwood's going to have a bounce back, or Quincy. There is some leeway there. It's not like, because you could easily say, no, they need 2 cornerbacks, no, they need 2 safeties, no, they need 2 linebackers. I'm saying like, okay, we're gonna be more optimistic than pessimistic. In order for the Jets to even be competitive next year, like I'm talking about, be the in the hunt graphic. Like they need just to be in the hunt in December and November with where we are right now. I think they need to find quarterback, wide receiver 2, defensive tackle, linebacker, and safety. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions that they need to just be competitive, 9 to legitimately compete. Like to be a legitimate contender in the NFL. And there's just no way you're finding that, especially when some of the positions you need, cornerback 1, quarterback, wide receiver, like those aren't easy to find. Like some of these positions are a little bit harder to find, clearly, by what the Jets have done. This is, and it's a shout out our production team of Sam and Brian and all those guys for piecing this together, because they went back and found the teams right now, as currently constructed, that did not make the playoffs last year that are now in position to make the playoffs this year. And those teams are, and these are ones that are, again, they're positioned to make the playoffs this year, might make it, might not make it, things can change all that, but right now they would. It's the Patriots, it's the Jaguars, it's the Bears, it's the Panthers, it's the 49ers, it's the Broncos. Broncos last year are kind of a little bit of an anomaly because they were 10-7, now they're like 11-2. 49ers last year 6-11, Panthers last year 5-12, Bears last year 5-12, Jaguars 4-13, Patriots 4-13. That does make you think, oh, get the right coaching staff in here, they can turn it around. The difference between all of those teams and the Jets, Zack, is that every single one of those teams that I just named that did not make the playoffs last year, that made it this year, brought back their quarterback. Every single one of them. They had their quarterback and they brought it back. The Patriots have May. The Jaguars have Lawrence. The Bears have Caleb. The Panthers have Young. The 49ers got Purdy healthy. The Broncos have Bo Nix. All of those guys had drafted their quarterback, didn't make the playoffs, developed them, surrounded with more talent, and now they're in the playoff picture with the right coaching staff. And I think the Jets are still like an off-season year away from being the teams that didn't make the playoffs the year before. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're looking at here, which is, it's a shame because now you're probably talking about like a 16-year playoff drought and maybe making it after 17 years, but that's truly where I think this team right now is.
I will say one correction for you. The Broncos did make the playoffs last year.
Oh, my bad. I misread that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, they're just not a quarterback away. So it's pretty simple to me. we maybe thought that at the beginning of the year, like if Justin Fields was good, they maybe could push for, being in the hunt. And I think it is conceivable that they can be in the hunt next year. Like you look at that again, like that team in 2022. I don't know what your expectations were going into that season. That I didn't start until training camp that year. I don't think expectations were very high for the Jets that year, and they started off, 6-3. It's conceivable that the Jets can do that. They can make this be the Jets' 2021 season, and next year is the 2022 where you feel a little better, and then you start going all in the year after that, and that's definitely conceivable. I just don't see the actual bid for the playoffs being realistic unless they get Joe Burrow or somebody crazy like that, and I don't see those things happening. And even if the Jets went out and got somebody like that, you're giving up all your draft capital, and then you're not making the roster better around him. Outside of free agency, wide receivers, the highest paid receivers are never really that good. I think it's hard to find really good corners in free agency a lot of the time, and pass rushers are definitely not growing on trees. So I don't recommend any team going all in on free agency unless you're close, like the Patriots were this offseason. So, I think they have a long way to go, maybe longer than even people in the building thought.
I agree, and again, that comes back to we absolutely overrated the Jets, but I don't think they're as bad as what they now have looked this year, which is finding that happy medium where you can make an argument of what coaching staff did you feel better about? Like which staff, after watching what we've watched so far from Aaron Glenn, and then what you've watched from Robert Saleh during his early years, what staff did you feel better about? And I just think there's a far more games with the Saleh staff and all that made you feel better about the direction they were headed than right now. And I don't think that's an Aaron Glenn thing. I think my real big concern is just the coordinators that he has. And maybe not so much Tanner just because of how undermanned the Jets' offense is, because you know that, but defensively there's big issues there. Okay, I do genuinely feel, Zach, like we've made it far enough without truly going into the nitty-gritty of the NFL draft with this show. Like we've talked about prospects before and quarterbacks. Shout out Mendoza and also shout out Connor Rogers who entertained me during that bowl game against Ohio State, because he's obviously the draft guy. I'm not the draft guy, and I know Rogers isn't super super high on Mendoza. Like I've talked to him about it. He's talked about it. He's written about it. He's lukewarm on him. He thinks he's a first-round pick. I don't know if he thinks he's a guy you mortgage all the future for. But I was texting him, and the first couple series of that game against Ohio State with Mendoza, I told him, I was like, Connor, I'm out. I'm done. I've seen enough. No uniform swag. The Ohio State's taking him down. It's over. Then he made those big throws, and I was all in on Mendoza. Then I heard the post-game interview, and I was all out on Mendoza again. So I'm all over the map with this guy. But did you watch the game, Zach, the Ohio State game?
I caught some of the end of it, and I watched some of the highlights of the good and the bad. I was just really impressed with how he stepped up. I know he took that huge hit in the beginning of the game. Yeah. There's something to be said. This is what you want to see from a top prospect. You go against a defense like Ohio State, and you come up in the clutch, and you don't fall. You're not shy of the moment. And he was making some big time throws. He made some clutch throws, and I came away from that really really impressed, because you look at Ty Simpson's the other one that a lot of people talk about as a potential guy, and he looked awful against Georgia. Yeah. Very inexperienced. And Dante Moore, we're going to see how he looks in the playoffs. It's going to be very interesting playoffs, actually, because you have all these quarterback prospects are in the playoffs, so it's going to be very notable for the Jets. And we're going to get a lot of opportunities to watch these guys, even like the guys that are end of the first round types like John Mateer with Oklahoma or whatever. So, I'm really high on Mendoza. I don't think his ceiling is like superstar. I think his ceiling is probably more like Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins type. But the Jets haven't had that type of quarterback ever. So if you can just have a solid quarterback for a decade, that would be a vast improvement. A guy who can run your offense, and someone who is willing to make the throws and can be a leader and doesn't shy from the moment and can move a little bit. Like Mendoza's all those things. But the flip side is, the Jets, they need to be in the right position draft-wise. Like, if the Raiders have the number one pick, they're not getting Mendoza, and then the quarterback options really dwindle after that. And the Raiders might get the number one pick at this rate because the Titans just won. So, the Jets need to lose, and they need the teams that don't need quarterbacks to not finish in the top one or two. And if it's the Browns at one, I'm guessing they probably want a quarterback. If it's the Titans, they don't want a quarterback. If it's the Giants, they don't want one. The Saints might not want one because Tyler Shuckler's really good. So we're going to be doing a lot of draft order watching over these next few weeks, and that Saints-Jets game is going to be like a draft bowl because the loser of that game kind of wins.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any chance in hell that the Jets find themselves picking one or two. I don't think that's going to happen. What they need more than anything else is to have the Giants picking one or two or the Titans picking one or two. And then what that opens up the possibility of is the bidding war. And as you see the draft order now, where it's Giants, Raiders, Titans, Browns, Saints, Commanders, then the Jets, and then the Cardinals, that's going to be fluctuating here or there. But the Giants one or two, Titans one or two, that's where this team needs to go because both the Giants and Titans are going to be open to trading. There have not been, throughout history, Zach, too many examples of a team coming off of the number one overall pick. And the only one, because again, the Jets aren't going to be picking 15, so there were a couple examples of that or an example of that. I more went back and looked at ones that were within striking distance throughout NFL history. So the one was when the Panthers went from 9-1 to draft Bryce Young. That's similar because I could see the Jets potentially winning a couple games here and finding themselves picking 9. I don't think they'll fall that far, but that's at least in the striking distance. The Panthers gave up wide receiver DJ Moore, a 2023 first, a 2023 second, then a 2024 first, and a 2025 second. That was considered by most standards to be a ridiculous trade to go up and get a guy. Like the Bears, that was such an insane and crazy overpay, especially for a player in Bryce Young that hasn't been that good throughout his NFL career. He's been fine, but not that good. That was a wild overpay. The other one was the Atlanta Falcons went to 5-1 with the Chargers to draft Michael Vick. They gave up wide receiver Tim Dwight, 2021 1, 2021 3, and then a 2022 or 2002 2. I'm sorry, and also not 21. That was 2001, not 21, obviously. That's history, math-wise. I'm going to throw some numbers at you. So I went on the over-the-cap trade value chart, which is what every team has their own trade chart that they assign values to, but this is just a general one, which is pretty close to what most teams work with. I looked at the Jets going 7-1, the Jets going 5-1, and the Jets going 3-1. All of them are overpays in different regards, but I'm curious if you would do this, all right? So for the Jets to go to 7-1, Zach, they give up the number 7 overall pick in the draft and the number 18 pick in the draft, which is the Colts. That would be about a 500-point value overpay to go from 7-1. Would you do that?
If I'm the team at number 1, you're saying? Or if I'm the Jets? If
you're the Jets, if you think this, because they're overpays, so theoretically the other team would accept it. So if you do you think the Jets should do that? Because these are what I pieced together here. Let me explain it this way. What I pieced together this year are trades that, from a value perspective, work. They work from a value perspective. So for the Jets to go to 7-1, giving up the number 7 overall pick in the draft and the number 18 pick in the draft is a 500-point overpay. If you're the Giants at number 1, do you accept that deal? 7 and 18 for one.
If I'm the Giants, I don't know. I think you can get more than that. So I don't think I accept that from the Giants. If I'm the Jets, I do that. I mean, you're going to have multiple teams that want to trade up. If this is a 1 quarterback draft and the Jets need a quarterback, going from 7-1 is a lot farther than if you're talking the Browns, who have an additional first-round pick, or if you're talking the Raiders, who would probably trade a lot to move up. So, the Giants going down from 1 to 3 is a little different from 1 to 7. They might be like, okay, we can get an additional first-round pick and stay at number 3. So, no, I don't think the Giants would do that necessarily. I mean, it would depend on what the other offers were, but I lean no on that.
All right, you be the other team then. The other one that works for a point value is the one we'll look at from 7-1, is you give the Jets 7th and the Jets 2nd-round pick. That's a 100-point value overpay. But again, when you're dealing with a quarterback, a lot of times the values don't come into consideration. And if you're Giants, you're not even going to consider that.
No, I think future picks are always more valuable than current picks too. So I don't think there's any way the Giants do this if they're not getting a first, a second next year. And they would be in their right to not do that. And that's why it's funny when you look back at the Sam Darnold draft is probably the most comparable one to this. Where the Jets wanted to trade. The Jets wanted to trade up with the Giants, and Dave Gettleman was like, "No, I want Saquon," so they went up to 3rd instead. And that it feels like that here. I'm sure somebody, like we say right now, it's a 1 quarterback draft, especially because we don't know if Dante Moore's coming out. Somebody like that might come out or might emerge that we don't expect, and there'll probably be a 2nd quarterback that everybody talks themselves into, and but the Jets have learned you don't want to be the runner-up usually in these cases, as that they got Zach Wilson. You can get Jaden Daniels, but it doesn't always happen like that. You can't get Drake May. It doesn't always happen like that. So, but yeah, I'm just very curious. Like the Jets, if they're doing that, they need to decide like Fernando Mendoza is the guy, and you're banking your jobs on that. Like if you're going up and saying Fernando Mendoza is our guy, we're giving up all these assets. We're going to make it a little bit harder to build the roster around him, but we think he's worth it. You go up and do it. They're not a playoff team next year. If they start off worse the year after that, everybody's losing their job, and it's because the Mendoza pick didn't work out ultimately. So there's a lot of pressure involved in that, but that's why you get paid to do this. And I think Muji, he really learned a lot in Denver from the whole Bo Nix situation, the way they scouted him, the way they decided he was their guy no matter what everybody else felt about him, and they kept it a secret the whole time, and they did a really good job with that. So I'm very curious to see how they approach this and what they feel about Fernando Mendoza, what they feel about Dante Moore or Ty Simpson, and it's going to be all we talk about over the next few months.
The big thing about Bo, though, is having Sean Payton in the building. Like, that's the thing. And I don't know if that's Tanner who identifies this. I don't know if it's London. I don't know if it's Scott Turner. I don't know who in the Jets building. Maybe even Scott calls on his dad, Norv, and Norv steps in and makes, watches some film and helps him out and says, hey, I think this guy's an absolute stud. Let's go get him, because Norv is one of the better offensive minds we've seen in the NFL in recent years. Maybe that's it. But like we said, Zach, key is having two teams that are picking 1 and 2, 2 and 1, not needing a quarterback, which opens up the possibility for the Jets to go trade him. Giants' remaining schedule, this is the one Jet fans aren't going to love to hear. They've had the hardest schedule in the NFL to this point. They close out, and it's pretty easy. It's Washington, Minnesota, the Raiders, and the Cowboys. So I do believe that ultimately the Giants are going to win 2-3 of these games, take themselves completely out of the order, even if it's Dart playing or it's Jameis playing. Like, the Giants seem to put up some points and do some things that are good. So I think they're going to steal a couple of those games there, which will take them out of the top pick consideration. The Titans' remaining schedule, much more challenging. 49ers, Chiefs, Saints, and Jaguars. The only one there that's the big question mark with the Titans is the Saints. And also, like, Shuck's playing some good ball right now for the Saints. Like, he's looking okay at quarterback. I think there's a good chance that the Titans lose that game. I do. So I think there's a chance the Titans lose out and are picking 1 or 2, and then the Jets can go up there and get that pick. One other selection I do want to talk about quickly here, Zach, because it's big news with Riley Leonard dealing with a knee injury with the Colts, Daniel Jones out for the season with the ruptured Achilles tendon. The Indianapolis Colts have gone from potential number 1 or 2 seed in the AFC, no doubt winning the AFC South, legitimate potential possible Super Bowl contender if Daniel Jones is as good as people expect, to now a team that is 8-5, out of the playoff picture, and without Sauce Gardner, who's dealing with an injury, without Daniel Jones, without the quarterback situation now suddenly so murky, they might completely and totally miss the playoffs. In fact, with the Seahawks, 49ers, and Jaguars, some of their remaining schedule, I think there's a chance they lose out. And the big thing there is that the Jets hold their draft pick. Like, they hold their next 2 first-round picks for what they gave up for Sauce Gardner. So that selection could get better and better and better.
I mean, not only the Colts probably going to lose, but they might be a disaster. Like, they currently, Anthony Richardson is on IR because he got hit in the face by a ball in a pregame warm-up. Riley Leonard apparently has an injured knee, so they literally don't have a quarterback right now. I don't know who they have on the practice squad, but they're like, this is like Jetsian with their quarterback situation, and it's fascinating that the Colts basically went all in. They put all their chips into the middle and then basically lost all of their money. That's just what happened.
Yeah.
Like, they traded for Sauce. Sauce gets hurt. Daniel Jones was dealing with an injury, and then he tears his Achilles. So you trade your 2 first-round picks thinking, okay, we're going to turn around and pay him this offseason because we found our guy. Well, now, because he just tore his Achilles. Like, it's a disaster scenario that the Jets have to be enjoying quite a bit, Frank. That 2027 first-round pick looks even better than this one, because I don't know how good the Colts are going to be next year unless they go and find somebody. So it's pretty crazy. Like, this is the risk you take when you go all in on one player who's not a quarterback like that, trading for a Sauce. And I mean, this might wind up costing Chris Ballard his job at some point, I would think. Like, that guy's been on the verge of the hot seat for a long time. So, but yeah, the Jets, I imagine that pick's going to be in the top 15. Like, that's crazy to think about because it felt like the Colts were a lock for the playoffs for a minute there. And now they're on the way out. So, that trade is looking better and better. And it's funny. Like, I don't think the Jets are going to win very many more games, if any. But, like, hypothetically, if they did, like, the Colts pick and the Jets pick are all of a sudden, like, getting closer to each other in the order, which I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So you mentioned where it could go up to. I went back and looked because it's impossible right now to project all of the teams that are in front of the Jets
Yeah.
and all of the teams in front of the Colts on what's going to happen. But historically, the last 2 years, so in 2024 for the 2025 draft, there were 3 teams that finished with an 8-9 record. It was the Dolphins, the Colts, and the Falcons. I believe it was the Falcons. I wrote down 2 teams. It was either the Falcons or the Cardinals. I can't remember which one I wrote down. I think it was the Cardinals. Miami picked 13, Indy picked 14, and then the Cardinals picked 15. So that was what 8 and 9 got you a season ago. It was either the 13th, 14th, or 15th pick. The year before that, in 2023, the Broncos and the Raiders both finished 8 and 9. Denver picked 12. The Raiders picked 13. So if the Saints, if the Colts do lose out to have a record of 8 and 9, that pick for the Jets historically is probably going to be anywhere from 12 to 15, which is a pretty good spot to be. Now, this draft isn't considered as deep as next year's draft, but still, I mean, you should be finding a 10-year starter with that selection. Like, you should be finding a legitimate star with a top 5 pick, which the Jets are going to have with their own selection, and then bounce back and find a legitimate starter on this roster, plus starter, potential Pro Bowler with that 12 or 13.
I mean, here's a just fun I just thought of in my head just now. Like, so let's say Ty Simpson and Dante Moore come out of the draft. The Jets get to 7. Ty Simpson's still on the board. You could draft a non-quarterback at 7 and then trade back up into the top 10 with the other one and go get a guy who probably has to sit for a year, and you get a bridge. Like, and then your roster is better, and you still have all the assets that you had before, because I don't think you have to trade as much if you're going from, let's say, 13 to 9 or 13 to 10. You don't have to trade as much, maybe third-round pick or something like that. So, the Colts losing out and the Jets losing out is, in terms of draft capital, the best-case scenario, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing is that I don't think that many teams need quarterbacks right now, which is a testament to some of the young talent combined with the veterans that we have across the NFL at the moment. But it's not like there's 10 teams that all need, no doubt, franchise quarterbacks, and it's going to push a ton of these players down. So the Giants, what you just described is kind of what the Giants did, where they drafted Abdul Carter and they traded back up for Jackson Dart, and it worked. So if you just look at the current NFL draft order, so you're like, I'm looking 1 through 7 with the Jets. The Giants aren't drafting a quarterback. The Raiders will, so there's 1. Titans aren't. I don't think the Browns are with how Shador's playing. The Saints might not with how Shuck's playing. Washington's obviously not going to draft one. Then you have the Jets. So say the Jets draft a playmaker there, right? So they don't even take their quarterback. They decide to wait a little longer. They take the best available playmaker. I guess the Cardinals go quarterback, right? Rams aren't going quarterback at 9, I don't think, unless they choose to draft someone to sit behind Stafford. Bengals aren't. Vikings maybe. So that's probably the spot you have to trade back up to is 11-12, because the Vikings and Dolphins could both go with a quarterback if they don't like 2 and they don't believe in JJ. So there's certainly some intriguing possibilities there for that possibility. But honestly, Zack, I think more looking at this, I like the possibility of the Jets drafting the quarterback organically at 7, not having to trade up, saying, hey, look, we like 3 guys. 3 quarterbacks aren't going top 7. Like, 3 guys aren't going to go. One of them's going to fall to us. We like all 3 of these guys. We're going to draft one. And then with our other first-round pick, which is 12, 13, 14, we're going to draft a really good player that's pushed back by maybe 3 quarterbacks. We'll see.
I mean,
real quick.
Yeah,
sorry, you go. My bad.
A lot of fun scenarios. So, no, I didn't have anything else to add. My bad.
All right, you're fine. That's fine. If you wanted to, I had no problem with you adding something there. Real run through this one real quick. Is the Jets at the Jaguars. Kudos to you for getting the Florida trip here, going all the way down to sunny Jacksonville. You staying on Jacksonville Beach?
No, actually, Samantha's coming with me on Saturday. We're going to go to St. Augustine for the night. It's really fun city. It's like the oldest city in America, actually, but there's a lot of cool stuff over there. So we're gonna actually something you would.
How close is that
I don't know
to
if we're gonna do
Jacksonville?
it. Like 45-minute drive. It's not too bad.
Okay.
But they have a fun thing, which I've been there once. I didn't do it. I feel like you would maybe like it. You can zip line over alligators if you want to do that.
Oh, I'm in.
I'm
I'm
gonna see if Samantha wants to do that or not. So.
That's not bad, dude. That's not bad. All right. So real quick, I mean, Jets are 11.5-point underdogs to the Jaguars, which is crazy. Shout out Liam Cohn and Duval and all that, because they certainly turned those guys around. Jets do not know who their starting quarterback is going to be. Aaron Glenn said he hopefully knows more on Wednesday, because you've got the groin injury with Tyrod. Justin Fields dealing with the knee. I don't even think Justin Fields really feels like going back out there. So it's probably going to end up being Brady Cook. And then the Jets are going to have to find a way to sign somebody to the practice squad or active roster, somebody to be their emergency quarterback behind him. I I picked the Jaguars at 11.5-point spread. I don't think Jaguars' offense is all that good, but I think their defense is going to feast on Brady Cook if he's starting. I think that's going to be an ugly one. So I'll take the Jaguars minus 11.5.
Man, that's a big line, but yeah, I agree. I mean, the Jaguars force a lot of turnovers. And you're about to either have an undrafted rookie or Justin Fields play quarterback, and the Jaguars can run the ball really well, and the Jets are struggling with stop run. It's on the road. I'll go Jaguars minus 11.5 as well. It feels like a big number, but hard to argue it.
I don't know, man. I'm just getting so tired of just blowouts, though. Like, I really just want to cover, like, just good football. That's my goal in life, is just cover good football, but I don't think that's going to happen. All right, Zach, that's going to do it for this JFD. I think this was a fun episode, don't you?
Yeah, good one. For a bad team, we try to pod good, you know?
Yeah, pod good. There we go. I like that. Pod good. Yeah. We obviously have a lot more coming to you guys. Well, JFD is over. We do have a lot more coming to you just on SNY throughout the course of this week, because we have Jets mailbag with Janae Coakley and myself. So if you guys want to send your questions over, you can start doing that now. Start tweeting to Janae, start tweeting to me, start tweeting to SNY Jets videos, and we'll compile those questions and then answer for them in the mailbag show a little bit later on the week. Really love doing that. If you want more of Zack, you can find him on Badlands, find him on Flight Plan, part of the Badlands group there with Joe Caporoso, Connor Rogers, Will Parkinson, and the guys. Zach does a great job on that show with Tim McMaster, so make sure you listen to that. SNY, we keep pointing to you about this all the time. Wherever you guys are listening to us, especially if where you are listening to us is YouTube, make sure you subscribe to SNY's YouTube channel, because you'll get that Jets mailbag show I was talking about, along with the putback with Ian Begley and all of SNY's digital content, which is absolutely a blast. Big thank you to our production crew of Brian Pincus, Sam Candle, Corey Palmer, and executive producer Jeff Goldman. He is Zach Rosenblatt. I am Connor Hughes. We'll see you guys next week after the Jets take on the Jaguars. Maybe they will win. Probably they will not.